In today's video tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate a beautiful buttercream cake design which will feature camellias and an elegant piped pattern around the sides. Okay, so now I have an 8-inch cake that I have frosted with vanilla buttercream, and my cake is already settled, and this is the final coat of frosting, and I'm just going around with my bench scraper to make a nice smooth layer. Okay, so I have cleaned up my cake. You can see it's a little sharper now just because after I got it pretty smooth just with the bench scraper and spatula, I went back and placed it in the freezer for about 20 minutes to firm it up and then went over everything with a hot spatula. So now what I'm going to do is add a pretty pipe design on top of this green, and I'm going to do that with my white buttercream and a round tip 4. And basically what I'm doing is I'm going to pipe simple flower shapes all over. So let me just show you what I mean. I think most of mine are going to be 5 petals. And if you kind of think of it as if you're imagining a star, it's that same arrangement where the points would be except for petals, if that helps you at all with your spacing. Okay, and so I'm going to pipe them close enough together that it looks almost like a continuous piece that we've applied to the cake, almost like lace. And then here and there, if you want to change up the number of petals, that's fine too. And definitely you'll be changing up the size a little bit. But you can see everything is touching. And I'm just going to continue this, and this is going to take a while, but the end result is going to be really elegant. Okay, I just wanted to come back and tell you, in some places you might have a space which you could leave, like where these 3 flowers come together, there's a space right here. You can leave that blank. You can add just a random little petal shape, or I think what I'm going to do probably most of the time is just add a little dot of buttercream here and there. I think it makes it cute, but you could do whatever you like. And also I like to, with my scroll work and also with piping like this, sometimes I like to pipe on top of my design. Just that over piping gives a little more dimension. So I don't know that we'll necessarily do it with every one of our flower shapes, but definitely here and there, I think it looks interesting. So hopefully that's coming through on camera, but definitely in person, it does give it some good dimension. Okay, so I have made my way all the way around, and I still am going to go back here and there and maybe add a little dot or over pipe in some of the areas, but let me just quickly show you the process of finishing this up. And another thing I wanted to mention is if you notice that it's really hard on your hands to do this piping, that could be a sign that your frosting is a little too thick. So just keep that in mind. If you're really having to apply a lot of pressure to your piping bag in order for the piping to come out, just switch to a softer buttercream. Just stir in just a little more of your liquid, whether it's milk or water, until it's a softer consistency. You want it to be able to hold its shape, but it should still flow really easily from your piping bag. Okay, so now I'm going to pipe my camellia. And here I have a rose nail, and I've just attached a wax paper square to it. And using my petal tip, this is a 104, I'm going to create a camellia. I have the fat end of my piping tip towards the center. I'm just going to tilt it slightly so that thin end is facing out. And then I'm going to do a couple of different types of camellias. One will be more of a bud. This one's going to be open. So for the open ones, I just go ahead and start with an outer ring of petals, and I'm just moving my piping tip forward and backward. So just apply pressure forward, then bring it back again, release your pressure, and you have a little petal. There's lots of different varieties of camellias. Some of them have a lot fewer petals than others, so it's really up to you how you want to do this. But I'm going to leave a decent sized space in the center because that's where we're going to add our yellow in just a second. So I've angled my piping tip up a little bit more so that I can really fit in here. But the same motion, just kind of that up and back motion. And then here I have my yellow buttercream, and I'm using a grass tip for this, but if you would rather, you could also pipe using a small round tip, your little spiky center. So I'm just gonna apply pressure and let it kind of fill out, and then you pull straight up, and you'll get that camellia center. And that's all there is to it. So this one's nice and open. I'm gonna slide it off onto our cookie sheet, and I'm going to be freezing these in a little while once we've piped all the flowers that we want to. And that way I can easily pick them up and place them on the cake. The other thing to keep in mind is that because we're doing it this way, and let me stop for a second, but because we're doing it this way, you want to use a buttercream that has actual butter in it, whether it's all butter or part butter, part shortening, because that's going to allow it to firm up much more quickly than a shortening based frosting. Okay, this one I'm going to do a little bud. So I started with the center, and I start with the center because my petals are going to be more, they're going to enclose this little center, and they're going to be standing almost vertically but slightly tilted inward. So I still have my fat end of the piping tip down, and we're just going to begin piping, and it's going to attach to our center. And then you can slightly overlap the petal before as you work your way around. And then you can just make it as large as you want to. If you notice a lot of buildup on your piping tip every now and then, you can clean it off. But that just makes a cute little bud. Okay, so we'll just put this down, and I'm just going to continue making a few more camellias. I'm not quite sure how many I'm going to end up using. And you could also experiment with different colors or two-toned petals where you put two different colors in your piping bag at once, one on each side. And that always gives you a nice look too. Okay, and we'll just fill this in. I don't usually count my petals. I just keep piping until it looks as full as I want. Okay, because I mentioned the two-tone piping, I just wanted to show you, here's an example where you can see half of my piping bag has white and the other side has that pinky color, which, by the way, this pinky shade, it has a little coral tint to it, and that was from Americolor Red coloring gel. I just didn't use enough to create that red color because I wanted a softer color. But you can see the fat end of the tip is faced in a way, positioned in a way that it has more of the white, where the thin end of the tip is catching more of this red. And you can kind of switch up how things are going to come out by turning your piping tip this way or that way if you're not completely happy with your colors. But I just think it has an interesting look. I'm not sure if we're necessarily going to use these, on this cake, but I just wanted to give you this example. Okay, what I'm going to do now is just freeze my tray of camellias until the flowers are nice and firm, and that might take about 15 minutes or so. And once they've firmed up enough that I can easily pick them up, I'm going to come back and we'll place them on the cake. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding my flowers now that they're nice and firm. And so I think I'll boost it up with a little bit of frosting. I'm just going to take this off of the wax paper now, and we'll just place it on. Okay, I think I'll actually use my leaf tip for this next one so I can build it up a little bit higher. And it's up to you how many flowers you want to add. I just think that these are really pretty. Let me go ahead and tell you, for my leaf tip, I'm using a Wilton 352. I like leaf tips that have that snippet out of the middle, just that triangular snippet, and then you just go in, pull it out, and you are going to have a nice sharp point every time. With some of the other leaf tips, you're not always necessarily going to have a sharp point. Okay, so let me grab some more. I'm only taking out, I decided to just take out a couple of flowers at a time. Just because this frosting does have, it has butter, but it also has a little bit of shortening in it too. And so I don't want to have to worry about my whole tray of flowers sitting out at room temperature while I work. Okay, let me add some more leaves. I wanted to show you really quickly in back where I have my buttercream built up, and I did that so that the flowers were tilted a little bit up and forward. Now I'm going back in with my leaf tip to make these look more like leaves from behind, just as a nice way to finish it off. Also, this flower has petals that are kind of hanging out way over the edge. So I'm going to add a little bit of support by putting leaves right behind it and beneath it. Okay, so I just wanted to show you, I did add a couple of our lighter colors of flowers just to mix in with the darker, but I think it looks really nice. Okay, so our cake is finished. I love how this came out. I think it's such a beautiful cake. And as you saw, it's not difficult to create. It just takes a little time. But I hope you'll give one or both of these techniques a try. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.